Ian Ure. Notice how that number 10 chases everything, Johnny Giles. He really is an object lesson to all footballers, no matter what their standard. He chases everything. Bremner looking for the speed of O'Grady, but my goodness, he'll have to go to get that before it reaches the safe arms of Wilson. And there goes the whistle for half-time. I must say a highly entertaining first half, but not a very good one for Arsenal. Bob Wilson would agree with that, I think, after that second goal. And also Ian Ure, number 5, who's had such an unhappy part in both those Leeds United goals. And so an entertaining first half, with Leeds United showing many of the qualities of champions, and among them, of course, Johnny Giles, number 10, with Mike O'Grady there. And so at half-time at Highbury, the score is Arsenal 1, Leeds United 2, and we shall be back with more soccer in just a moment. So Arsenal kick off then the second half, that 1 goal down against the Leeds side that is unbeaten in its last 23 games. And of course a victory this afternoon would just about clinch the First Division Championship for Leeds. Back with Bob Wilson. Gould to Graham. Flicking it on for the speed of Armstrong. Madeley to contend with. Good work by Armstrong. McClintock going in. A chance for McClintock. Gould missing his kick. McNabb to Armstrong. Perhaps another chance for Gould. And Cooper away. Poor Bobby Gould missing his kick when least he wanted to. Really was opening up for him. And Bremner. 5 minutes of the second half gone. Armstrong. Losing it to Bremner. Off the referee, back to Armstrong. Samuels. And Reaney well able to cope. And still in for Mick Jones. Ure claiming as he runs that the ball was out, but this is Jones facing Ure. And now Gray beating McNabb. Giles, good work again by Leeds, and good covering by Peter Storey. Beautiful little jink there on the blind side by Johnny Giles, number 10. And another corner to Leeds United. Eddie Gray to take it. Jones on that goal line again. Bremner up in support for the short one. So it's a goal kick to Arsenal. Bob Wilson to take it. Good play by Robertson. Oh, and not so very far away. Arsenal claiming that it went off straight for a corner, but in fact it's a goal kick. Good run by Robertson. And he's very often at his most dangerous when he can work that ball onto his left foot with a bit of space, but not quite the normal power behind that shot. And Jones deceiving Ure again, or at least the ball in the air did. So far the second half really hasn't lived up to the first. Bremner. Now Graham. McNabb outside him. Here's McNabb. Graham continuing his run. Samuels going in, and now Robertson. Bremner missing his kick. Armstrong. Good shot and a good save there. A very good ground shot there by Armstrong. A good shot by Armstrong, very nearly getting through that packed Leeds defence. And now David Port to McNabb. This one will go through to Robertson. McClintock going to give him support down the right. Story inside him. Robertson gets another go. Story. Graham is right up there and he got his head to it. And goal going in to no avail. And George Graham not very happy with that decision, but in fact it is a throw to Leeds United. McNabb for Samuels to McClintock. Arsenal moving a little more convincingly now. And at that point in the second half, our recording equipment developed a fault, so it's as well for us, if not for Arsenal, that there were no further goals in that game. So Arsenal 1, Leeds United 2, and Arsenal are beaten in their last home game of the season. Let's have a look again then at the goal that cost Arsenal that game. Another one, testing this time the speed of Ure against Johnny Giles, and almost there! It's there! Almost a complete repetition of that first goal in the League Cup final against Swindon. A misunderstanding by Ian Ure, poor dejected Ure. And Ian Ure is one of our guests today, with him Jimmy Hill.
Well, for the moment, Ian, just let's leave that unhappy pass back that gave away the goal and talk about Leeds United. They're on top of the league at the moment. How do you view them as potential champions?
Well, yesterday I think I had the most favourable impression I've ever had of Leeds. I thought that, I know we had all the pressure on that, but somehow or other I felt that when they were on the ball, they were a really good side. You know, I think they were, you know, I know we had all the pressure, the game was all ours, but, and I had great arguments with one or two of my teammates after the game about it in the bath, but, you know, I still felt that, you know, I sensed that here was a good team. Yeah.
How far removed are Arsenal from Leeds United? Right, I'm not talking about points, but how far do you think you've got to go before you're as good a team as Leeds United?
No, it's very difficult to say. It's, you know, I really couldn't say.
No, but since Leeds started their fight back, they've had 4 or 5 years before they've got to the top of the first division. Yeah, Arsenal have only just begun to challenge the leading side.
We're hoping that in the next few years we can sort of do as Leeds did. I mean, they had a few lean years, you know, almost they had a few good seasons where they almost won something and ended up winning nothing. And this season we've been in more or less the same position, you know, getting the League Cup final, which we should have won, but we got beaten. You know, we've gone reasonably close in the league, and you know, we went out in the cup quite early, but on the whole we've had a reasonably good season, and we're hoping that
it'll be next year
or the year after.
Back to yesterday's game, although Leeds, you say they played very well and respect them as a side, you gave them both goals, I thought, Arsenal.
Yeah,
the first
me
one.
Personally.
Well, no, I mean you, the team. The first one, I thought I would blame you for a little bit. I thought you were caught in the wrong position.
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, in the first goal, it was quite a sudden through ball. I was surprised at the penetration of the ball. The ball was driven through quite hard. I think you'll see it here.
It's Mickey Bates.
Yeah, he picks it up, and he seemed to hit a fantastic through ball from against the wind too, and it caught me just a wee bit square and a wee bit off my guard, and Jones really picked it up well and ran on and cracked it in the net. The ball was going away from me the whole time, you know, and I couldn't quite get within tackling distance.
No. Do you think this was because Arsenal were going for Leeds too much? They dictated the place, played some very good football, I thought, with under difficult windy conditions.
I think so. We had the wind in the main. It was, although it was going both ways at times.
Yeah.
In the main, we had it behind us in the first half, and we seemed so keen, I thought, to sort of get at them. You know, we put all the pressure on them early on, that we were caught a bit square. You know, we were caught. I mean, I was caught square myself with that through ball. But you know, normally I don't think a through ball like that would have caught us quite.
Ball.
So it was a good ball. Yes,
ball.
It was just in the right. Because we were taking the game at them so much, so keen to get in at them and have a go at them, that we were just caught a wee bit.
But you did fight
sleeping.
back then. The team came back.
Oh, aye.
George Graham was playing very well in the middle of the field. What system have you got in the Arsenal team for these pass backs?
Well, in the main, if the goalkeeper shouts, it's his ball, you know. It's the goalie's ball. If he says my ball, and you sort of leave it to him, you know.
Did he shout yesterday for that ball?
I really can't remember it, and I didn't discuss it with Bob after the game, but I don't remember hearing a shout. But, you know, I saw him coming out, and anyway, it was such a quick movement that there was no shout necessary. It was it was just a simple sort of...
Well, I've got very
get onto
positive...
it and pass it back to Bob as quick as possible, you know.
I've got very positive views on this, and I think that he made it much more difficult for you and he by rushing off his goal line and leaving such a short space. Just watch as the ball goes through here. There's the ball played through. You're in command. Now, Bob Wilson comes off his goal line, leaves that nasty gap, or the gap between you is very narrow,
yes,
and it makes it a harder skill for you to play it back to him.
Oh, I did push it back a wee bit hard to him as well, you know, because I was under pressure just a wee bit, because I knew Johnny Giles was close at my back, you know, and I was just under a wee bit of pressure, and I tried to sort of prod it back smartly to him, and of course I prodded it just a wee bit too hard, and it sort of went through Bob's hands to his right. And
I'm not trying to blame one or the other. I'm just making the point that if the goalkeeper stays back on his line and you're going to pass back to him, and that's your system, I think there's less likelihood of error. For one thing, he doesn't leave his goal, and he doesn't leave his goal unguarded, and two, it gives you a longer distance to find him with the ball.
Yeah, perhaps.
Just look at the League Cup final one, which is a very similar incident. And I hate to remind you of it, Ian, and I know you haven't seen it until this moment, but it does illustrate, I think, the same thing, the same fault. And Arsenal don't give many goals away. 22 in 38 games. This again seemed rather a silly one, which could have been avoided.
Yeah, it seemed exactly the same, you know, but not quite. There wasn't quite so much hurry in this one.
See, watch him rush off his line. Now, see how close you are to him when you play that ball back.
Yeah.
And this leads to all the trouble, and the ball dribbles annoyingly into the corner of the net.
I think that was an even worse one in the League Cup final. When I think it was, you know, it was one that could much easily have been stopped than yesterday's, you know, because I had so much time with the through ball. Yeah. You know, and there was a mix-up in the shout and coming out and what have you. You know, it was a
horrible
general
thing.
free-for-all.
Ian, I think it's very brave of you to come in anyway. Normally we have
I must
players
be mad.
You must be mad. Normally we have players who played brilliantly the day before. It's good of you to come in and own up to your mistake. May I say to Arsenal, the best of luck next season, especially with those pass-backs.
Yeah, I hope so. Thank you very much.
But it wasn't bad back passes that really worried me about yesterday's game. I think, like everyone else in the stadium, I left the ground feeling very upset about that nasty incident between Bobby Gould and Gary Sprake.
Gould is aiming for this one, and misjudged very badly indeed by Sprake, and Sprake has fouled Gould.
I have very strong views on this because I think all of us want to see an end to that kind of conduct on the field. But if a referee is going to allow a player to get away with that and remain on the field until the end of the game, then how are the other players going to get the message to cut it out? Just watch again. There's Bobby Gould's back heel, which started it all, and there comes the punch. And I think Bobby Gould must take his share of the blame for provoking that incident. But nevertheless, he did get his name taken. It's interesting to see Gary Sprake on the floor there, in a position where he's going to receive attention from the trainer. But it takes them some time before they find out just where the damage is. He's holding the back of his leg there. And you'll see their moment of worry. Am I going to get sent off? He knows he's punched Bobby Gould, and he and trainer Les Cocker are thinking to themselves, how are we going to play it? Are we going to go off the field or are we not? Now, the area that's been injured is his stomach. He's obviously been winded somehow in that incident. They look round. Bobby Gould was cut on the cheek. I saw it afterwards. And there again, Sprague talking to the referee, and in a moment we'll see the punishment that they will meted out for this particular crime. Bobby Gould's reaction. Oh no, ref. You can see the words coming from his mouth. But he knows, I think, that he got the punishment that fitted the crime. He had his name taken for that needless back heel or back kick as he was jumping for the ball. Now you can see as he goes across, Gary Sprague is so very relieved that he's not been sent off the field. And the point I make is that if the referee hadn't seen him punch Gould, then why was he taking his name in the first place? And for me, unless referees are more severe and do apply this particular law when a player raises his fist when he strikes somebody, I think that they should be sent off the field immediately and their side be punished and themselves punished in that way. That's the only way we can cut it out.
So a strong, and I think you'll agree, justifiably strong opinion by Jimmy Hill on that punch-up at Highbury yesterday. But now we turn to something a good deal happier, because we're very pleased to welcome to the Big Match studio today the winner of our Golden Goals competition, Arthur Lindop of Slough in Buckinghamshire. Jock to his friends, and you'll gather from that he's a Scot. And I think you don't in fact support a London club, do you?
No, I don't actually.
Who do you support?
Glasgow Rangers support.
For how long is that?
Oh, since I was 14 years old, I should think.
But did you have very much trouble then deciding who should be the winners of our Golden Goals competition? Scored all by Englishmen, I think, wasn't it? Let me think.
Well, yes, I had quite a bit of deliberation before I finally filled it in, but I didn't actually fill it in myself. I called it out to my wife and she filled it in for me.
Really?
Yeah.
What was it you liked about the Martin Peters goal that was #1?
Well, I did like actually the lead up to the goal. I thought that the football play, that's from the back to the winger and the crossover straight onto his foot, was remarkable football, really.
Have you had much leg pulling this week amongst
I've
your
had
workmates?
Oh, terrific leg pulling all week.
And you've had a good weekend with us, I hope,
I've
as
had
well.
a marvellous weekend.
What did you enjoy most at Highbury yesterday?
I enjoyed the first half, but I couldn't say much for the second half, really.
Well, I think you're going to enjoy what we're going to show you now, Mr. Lindop, because as a Glasgow Rangers supporter, we couldn't let it go by without showing you a couple of Glasgow Rangers goals that they scored in the Scottish Cup semi-final against Aberdeen to help put them on to a final against Celtic in a fortnight's time. Here they come.
Persson didn't quite treat that with the respect it deserved, but he's looking very dangerous now, coming in. This could be a goal for Rangers. This kick. Goal! Penman. Well taken goal. Rangers go ahead in 14 minutes. Persson hooks the ball back to the centre, and it's cleared only as far as the edge of the box. Smith, and a chance for Henderson to get two. He does.
Mr. Lindop, thank you very much for coming. What you don't know, in fact, is that we've also got a little party laid on for you with all the top soccer personalities there, including Martin Peters, who scored that #1 goal. We'll go to that after the programme.
Very
Fine.
nice.
Thank you very much for coming in. So that there now is the end of our competition, but it's interesting to note how the golden goals have somehow become a yardstick for all great goals that are scored these days. In fact, in the Arsenal programme only yesterday, they say, we wondered how the goal scored by George Graham against Wolves would have fared in the golden goals competition. It has become something of a yardstick. We thank you very much, all of you, for your entries, 17,000 of them. But quite apart from the 17,000 entries, we also had, as you might expect, a fair number of letters from people saying, why wasn't this goal or why wasn't that goal included amongst the golden six? And one goal that had a fair bit of support, I must say, was one scored by David Court of Arsenal against Coventry earlier this season. Steve Grant of Luton particularly wants to see that one again.
George Graham there and Clements having a good old barging contest on the line. Good fisting away. This is caught. This could be dangerous.
And indeed, that was a very fine goal. And another fine goal that had a fair bit of support was one scored by John Sissons quite recently for West Ham against Liverpool. Mark Edwards, aged 8, of Plaistow, London E13, and Jamie Filtness of Stratford, aged 10. They want to see that goal.
Oh, beautifully played by Hurst. That looked as though it must go out. Redknapp, he's got Hurst free on his right. This is Hurst. And now Sissons! Oh, goal by Sissons! And that all...
And after so many goalless draws recently, one yesterday, of course, against Chelsea, I suppose West Ham could do with a few more like that. But, of course, a goal that was scored only last week by Steve Kember of Crystal Palace against Portsmouth, had that been scored earlier in the season, that would have qualified as well, says Mr. Raymond Meagher of West Dulwich.
Snowden. Colin Taylor, now Kember off in chase, Hand is with him. Still Kember. Beautiful goal!
And Palace almost there now. There really have been some great goals this season. Also, of course, there have been, as we've said before, a lot of hawk-eyed viewers of the big match. And the latest example of this comes from an 8-year-old, Mark Ruminer, who writes to us saying, watching the game between Manchester City and Everton, the semi-final of the FA Cup, I noticed that Colin Bell, the City number 8, had different socks on to all the other players. Can you tell me the reason why? Well, Mark, in a moment we'll show you that you are in fact right, that Colin Bell does wear different socks to anybody else, and in fact we've got an explanation for you. You'll see Bell number 8. He seems to have hoop stockings on, and as this ball is played back you'll see other Manchester City team members in all dark stockings. Well, we spoke to Colin Bell about it this week, and apparently he uses some strapping at the bottom of his stocking to help keep his shin pad in place, so that will account for the stripe at the bottom. But also, instead of putting one turn of his sock over the top, he puts two, and that brings a different pattern about. So although he, in fact, wears exactly the same stockings as anybody else, they do, in fact, look different. We stay, in fact, with Colin Bell and with Manchester City as we pick up the second game on the big match today, and it's Manchester City against Sunderland. We thought we ought to keep in touch with the Cup finalists, and it's a goal now, near the end. City are in the lighter shirts. Barry Davis is the commentator.
Lee. Young. And a goal!
And of course that's a goal that really puts Sunderland in terrible trouble now at the bottom of the first division, or very close to the bottom at any rate. That is all from the big match today. I hope you've enjoyed it. Another big match for you, of course, next Sunday with another top game, highlights from another game, studio guests, and our guest next week will include Bobby Charlton. But we thought we'd finish with a bit of action today, and the best action that probably came out of Highbury yesterday was that superb first goal for Leeds United by their number 9, Mick Jones. So here it comes again.
Bates bringing it away. And now the chase is on. Muir versus Jones, and Jones is winning it.